Hi, thank you for joining me. Mindy Mandell here, and I'm going on with the series of videos on Proclus's Elements of Theology. The propositions that I'm looking at today, 50 through 55, all deal with time and eternity. And I am using the E.R. Dodds translation. For those of you who do not have the text, there is a PDF link in the description box. So Proposition 50 introduces the idea of coming to be or becoming. Things that are eternal always are. They're unchanging. They're steadfast in their existence. So we say that they have being. But things that exist in time are in a process of always coming to be, and often called becoming. So up to now, we've been dealing with being or the eternal. But Proclus is now going to introduce becoming, that which is in time. Proposition 50. All that is measured by time, either in its existence or in its activity, is in process of coming to be, in that respect in which it is measured by time. Now, this phrase, in that respect, this phrase is significant because the human soul is eternal in its being, in its existence, but its activity is in time. And so he's setting that up. Okay, here's the proof. For if it is measured by time, it must have a temporal existence or activity, and a past and a future, which are mutually distinct. Since if its past and its future be numerically identical, it is unaffected by the passage of time, which always contains a distinguishable earlier and a later. If then its past and its future are distinct, it is something which becomes and never is. But it moves with the movement of the time which measures it. It exists in becoming and is not steadfast in its own existence, but it continually admits of being one thing and then another, as the temporal now is different in every moment by reason of the passage of time. Accordingly, it does not exist as a simultaneous whole. This idea of a whole is going to come up again when talking about the eternal. But that which exists in time does not exist as a simultaneous whole, for it has the dispersed existence of temporal duration, and it is extended with extending time. That is, it has its being in not being, for what is coming to be is not the thing which it is becoming. Therefore, what exists in this way is in process of coming to be. And so this contrasts the eternal that we were talking about in my last video, where you see the three moments in the triad that are actually a whole. They are not separate from each other. We make distinctions in our discursive thoughts about the eternal, but the three moments are not actually separate. It is a simultaneous whole. But that which is coming to be, that which is in time, is different from this, and so this is the contrast. Okay, so now in Proposition 51, Proclus wants to make clear that the self-constituted rank higher in our metaphysical hierarchy than things that are measured by time. So Proposition 51. All that is self-constituted transcends the things which are measured by time in respect of their existence. For if the self-constituted is without temporal origin, then it cannot be measured by time in respect of its being. For coming to be is predicated of everything that is measured by time. Nothing, therefore, which is self-constituted has its subsistence in time. This allows Proclus then to say that the soul is self-constituted and therefore immortal, because only its activity is in time. The human body, or anything in the physical world, by contrast, is measured by time. Proposition 52 is a contrast to Proposition 50. Whereas Proposition 50 focused on becoming, or that which is always coming to be, Proposition 52 is focused on being, that which always is, as a simultaneous whole. So Proposition 52 reads, all that is eternal is a simultaneous whole. And here's the proof. If its existence alone be eternal, that existence is simultaneously present in its entirety. There is not one part of it which has already emerged, and another which will emerge later, but as yet is not. All that is capable of being, it already possesses in its entirety, without diminution and without serial extension. If its activity be eternal, in addition to its existence, then this too is simultaneously entire, steadfast in its unvarying measure of completeness or perfection in some translations, and as it were frozen in one unchanging outline, without movement or transition. So these are things in the divine realms, divine mind, being, life. For if the eternal means, as the word itself shows, that which always is, and even if you don't read Greek, you can see the similarity of those words. If this is what it means as distinct from temporary existence or coming to be, then its parts cannot be distinguished as earlier and later. Otherwise, it will be a process of coming to be, not something which is. And so you want to contrast this proposition with Proposition 50, things that are in time. And where there is neither an earlier nor a later, neither a was nor a will be, but only a being which it is, there each thing is simultaneously the whole of what it is. And a like argument applies to activity. And so the corollary to this, from this it is apparent that eternity is the cause of things existing as wholes, inasmuch as all that is eternal in its existence or in its activity has the whole of its existence or activity simultaneously present to it. So we want to contrast Proposition 50 with Proposition 52. It's a lot easier for us to wrap our minds around Proposition 50 because things which exist in time we're quite comfortable with. But Proposition 52 is very important to understand. Proposition 53 is setting up two series, one with the monad eternity and one with the monad time. Prior to all things eternal, there exists eternity, and prior to all things temporal, time. Now, to review the idea of a series, I think it would be helpful to look back at Propositions 18 and 19. So Proposition 18 reads, everything which by its existence bestows a character on others, itself primitively possesses that character which it communicates to the recipients. So eternity, for example, would be a monad which primitively possesses that character, and then it communicates the eternal to those in its series. And the same with time and the temporal. And Proposition 19 reads, everything which primitively inheres in any natural class of beings is present in all the members of that class alike, and in virtue of their common definition. So if you're looking at the monad time, then all in the series would be temporal. And if the monad is eternity, then all members in the series are eternal. Now we can see that for his proof of Proposition 53, he's going to draw from Proposition 23, which introduced the idea of the unparticipated, the participated, and the participant. And since it's been a while since we've looked at this, we should probably also review this one as well. What we specifically need to recall about Proposition 23 for our purposes today is that the unparticipated is the highest of the terms. It creates the participated, and then at the end is the participant. Okay, so now we're finally ready to look at the proof for Proposition 53. For if everywhere participated principles exist before the participants, and the unparticipated principles before the participated, and that's the hierarchy we were just looking at. If this hierarchy is accepted, then it is plain that an eternal thing is distinct from its eternity, and both of these from eternity in itself. So the first one we looked at here, the eternal thing, is the participant. The second, its eternity, is the participated. And the third, eternity in itself, is the unparticipated. And we can do the same with time. And again, that a temporal thing, which is a participant, is distinguished from its time, which is participated. And this, in turn, from a more primitive, unparticipated time. Each of these unparticipated terms is identically present everywhere in all members of its order. We saw that in Proposition 19. While the participated term exists only in those members which participated, so human life, for example. But the eternal things are many, and likewise the temporal. All the former have an eternity by participation, all the latter a time which is parceled out. But prior to these are the undivided eternity and the one time. These are the eternity of eternities and the time of times, since they generate the participated terms. Proposition 54 reads, every eternity is a measure of things eternal, and every time of things in time. And these two are the only measures of life and movement in things. So what's being added here is this last part, that eternity and time are measures of life and of movement. And the proof here. For any measure must measure either piecemeal or by simultaneous application of the whole measure to the thing measured. That which measures by the whole is eternity, and that which measures by parts is time. There are thus two measures only, one of eternal things, the other of things in time. I'd like to wrap up today's video looking at Proposition 55. This one reads, of things which exist in time. So we're only focusing on time. And he's saying that some have a perpetual duration, while others have a dated existence in a part of time. So of things that exist in time, some exist in the whole of time, others exist in a part of time. And here's the proof. For if all procession is through likeness, and that was Proposition 29, and the first term of any series is immediately succeeded by terms which are like rather than unlike, then the wholly unlike have a lower station. That was Proposition 28. You have your monad, for example, eternity or time, and then the terms in that series, the higher ones would be most like that monad, those at the bottom would be least like it. And if it is impossible to attach directly to the eternals things which come to be in a part of time, since the latter are doubly distinguished from the former, both as things in process from things which are, and as dated from perpetual existences. So he's saying there must be an intermediate order which resembles the eternals in one respect, but differs from them in the other. So to better understand this, imagine that these two ovals represent two different orders. The top one represents the eternal, and the lower one are things that are temporal in a part of time. Now the unlikeness between them is great. They have very little likeness. The temporal is different from the eternal, and it's also in only a part of time. So what he's saying is that there must be some order in between that links them. So coming back to our text, then we're looking for the mean between things which come to be for a time and things which perpetually are. And he's going to give us two possibilities. It's either that which perpetually comes to be or that which is for a time. So coming back to our diagram, we're looking for the mean between the eternal and that which is temporal and a part of time. And he tells us there are two possibilities. Either that mean is something which perpetually is in that state of becoming or coming to be, or it's something that temporarily has being. So going back to our test, he now says, now that which is for a time may refer either to a temporary being which is not fully real or to a temporary true being. But no true being can be temporary, and the temporary being which is not fully real is one with coming to be. Therefore, that which is for a time is not the mean. It remains that the mean is that which perpetually comes to be, which in virtue of its coming to be is attached to the inferior order, while in its perpetuity it imitates the eternal nature. And there is a corollary here to this proposition. From this, it is apparent that the perpetuity or eternity that we spoke of back in propositions 48 and 49 was of two kinds, the one eternal, the other in time. The one a perpetual steadfastness, and the other a perpetual process. The one having its existence concentrated in a simultaneous whole, the other diffused and unfolded in temporal extension. The one entire in itself, and the other composed of parts, each of which exists separately in an order of succession. So we can talk about two kinds of eternity. Eternal in the sense of being beyond time, or eternal in the sense of being the whole of time. And often we'll use the word perpetual to distinguish them. Eternity is generally used to describe that which is beyond time or outside of time. Or we often will say prior to the realm of time. And we do have to use temporal or spatial terms because we just don't have a language for that which is outside of time and space. So we have to expand our understanding of words like beyond or prior to. So it's always, in this case, it's used with the understanding that we're not really talking about things in space and time. Okay, but that said, we can talk about eternity as being beyond time and perpetual as being the whole of time. And so we want to keep clear in our minds the difference between being eternal and being perpetual through the whole of time. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave those below. And as always, please like the video if you found it helpful. It really does help me out. And also, please subscribe if you don't already. You'll get notifications of future videos. Thank you very much.